I'd like to say welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We will be getting started shortly. Got a good show for you today. I will have guests on. We will be talking about some students, talking about students with special needs. And this is the time of the year where we will be discussing the annual review. So watch the clock, sit back, and we will be getting started shortly. I'd like to say welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Tony Hollis Live Talk Show Testify. As promised, I wanted to do a show on the annual review for the students with special need. It's that time of the year to where parents get with the school district and they sit down to try to learn exactly what progress have their child learned for that particular year. But before I bring my guests on, I just want to say to the community, I want us to get to the point to where we making black on black crime our number one priority the remainder of this year. I'm going to need some help. I can't do it by myself. I actually need the ministers. I need the pastors. Either you lead, I'll follow you. But I'm hoping in the very near future that I can get with the pastors of Mississippi County and we could hold some discussion as to what can be done. Enough with the talk. We should not normalize to continue seeing our young black men continue to be shot and killed. I want to thank everyone for your prayers and your thoughts of sending out to my cousin and the mother of my cousin, of their child. Um, Many of you know him as AJ. We lost him to gun violence. And my heart go out to the family. We can do better as a community. I'm calling upon the pastors. Either you lead or you join me, where we coming together to do something to put an end to this senseless killing of our young black men. Hopefully we can do that. We can hang up our hang-ups and do what's in the best interest for our young black men. Will you do that, pastors? Anyway, we're going to go ahead and roll into the show, ladies and gentlemen. I started this thing back here years ago when my son, who participated in the special education program, there are some things that I didn't even know about the special education program. I didn't have one clue as to how to support my child who was participating in the special education program. I did learn, and there was some bumpy roads along the way with the Blythe School District, but the good news is, in working with them, one of my guests that we'll be bringing on today, she's the director of the special education program. I've worked with her over the years, and she assisted me in helping me help my child to get a adequate, appropriate education to where when he go out in the society that he lives in, and hopefully become gainfully employed and be able to live on his own. And so I thank her for that. She and the school district, we did get it together, and my son, he's living on his own now. But anyway, what I want to do, I want to bring Mrs. Cole on first and let her pretty much give you the whole picture of exactly how the annual review, the whole process, how it works. Okay. Now, before I close, before I bring on Mrs. Cole, I want to say that the reason that this is so important, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a child, or if you have family members, that have a child, or a friend, or a neighbor, please, you need to tune in today. There was a time and point, but somewhere back in I want to say, the early 60s or 70s, to where kids wasn't even being educated in the school system because they had disabilities. They was deaf, some was blind, some was emotionally disturbed. There was all sorts of disabilities that kids had, to where, for whatever reason, the teachers um, didn't educate them until we passed laws that gave these rights to those students with disabilities. And the law that we know it today, which is called IDEALS, that stand for Individual Disability Education Act, which Mrs. Cole, she pretty much the expert and she can explain that a bit more. So without any further ado, I want to go ahead and bring on my first guest, and then we'll get to the parents. We have one parent, so I see Mrs. Bright, Miss Webb. She will be joining us today. So let me bring on Mrs. Jean Cole and let her go ahead and give an introduction of herself and basically tell you uh, what is it that one can expect, parents that is, when they attend their child's annual review. So without any further ado, let me bring on Mrs. Jean Cole. Let me go ahead and set this screen right there and blow you up a little bit. How you doing there, Miss Cole?
I'm doing great. How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing fine, considering had a nice day at church long, and now I'm out, and now I'm at my community activism work. But anyway, just give us a I don't know if I get that background history correct in terms of some things that went on with our students back in the as far as I can remember, back in the 60s and the 70s, until we got these laws that gave students with disability the right to be educated. So give us a little brief uh, uh, background of yourself, exactly who you are and what you do within the Blythe School District.
Okay, as you have already alluded to, my name is Jean Cole. Good evening, everyone, and I am the director of behavior support services, and special education falls up under that umbrella. And as in the district, my job is to supervise the special education teachers, the programs, different programs that we have in the school district, supporting our students with special needs. And as Mr. Hollis has already talked about, back in the 60s and 70s, that was the law was called Public Law 94-142. Well, it has changed tremendously, and it's great. Now it's IDEA, and that's for, as he had already stated, Individual with Disability Educational Act. And in that act, that's what got me back when I was back in college in the 70s. I wanted to be a special education teacher because my heart was already going out. I had family members who children were not being served correctly, and so that gave me the I guess the desire to get in and help more with the students with special needs. Because when I was in school back in the day, we didn't have any special education classes. The children were just thrown in with everybody else, but you knew that that child needed a lot more than what the regular ed teacher could offer. I talked to Mr. Hollis, and I have an idea of what I'm just going to talk about briefly this afternoon or this evening. And that is just looking at what a parent would want to know, a parent with a child with special needs. And I had a few questions that I've been posed, that I've been asked. And so I just kind of gathered a few of those together and just want to share it with you. The one is just starting off with what is an annual review? And the annual review is a yearly meeting which we sit down with the child's IEP, case manager, a regular ed teacher, a special education teacher, a principal. If the child has a medical need, the nurse would be involved. If the child had related services such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, whatever, anybody that's involved with that child sits down at this meeting annually. And by law, it has to be done annually. We can have more meetings as needed, but that annual review where we develop that IEP for the next year, where we talk about strengths and weaknesses, things that we had been working on. That's what we talk about during the annual review process. If there are any, we need to, at that annual review meeting, we talk about, do we need to continue special education services support? The child needs to be, does he need to continue receiving services in special education, in the resource room, in the self-contained classroom, in the speech room, in the occupational therapy continue to receive those services. We look at evaluations. We look at classroom data. We look at information that parents bring in. They sometimes get individual evaluations, but we look at all of that to meet the needs of the child. We also look at any anticipated needs for the child. If there's a behavior situation, at that point, we'll look at a behavior support plan. What did we do this year? What could we do differently next year to help that student, support that student with anything that's coming up, if it's behavior, academics, or related services? We talk about it at that annual review meeting. Parents are, we stress it all the time. Parents, we need the parents at the meeting. The parent is the really important part in the meeting because number one, you're your child's biggest and best advocate, because you could answer questions that would help the teacher understand the student better. Even though we do a lot of testing, we do a lot of different collaboration with the other teachers, but that parent is the key to telling us, getting just straight to the heartbeat of what's going on with the student, how we can better help the student. So we really stress that we really need the parents in, and we ask the parents to check in regularly. Check in, not just wait to annual review, but just check in regularly to see and have communication with your child's teacher and principals. So what is an annual review? That's it, kind of in a nutshell. Also, another question that's been asked, when does an annual review occur? Well, the title of it lets you know that it's annually, but it can be done more.
Right.
Anytime you have a need, you call your child's IEP teacher and say, I'd like to set up a meeting. It can be done anytime within that anytime within that time. But normally the annual review occurs within a year from the initial time the child was placed in special education, whether it was in first grade, third grade, wherever.
Let me interject for a minute. For
Come on.
those who don't know what an IEP is, could you just really explain to them what is an IEP?
Yes, an IEP, and I was going to get to that. That was going to be one of my questions, but I can get to it now. The IEP, that's an individual educational plan. This is where we know that a child has a disability, or a child is struggling in reading or language, or the child may be struggling in math. So then we do these batteries of testing, the comprehensive evaluations, and then we find out where the deficits are. From that deficit area, or from those deficit areas, that's when we look in there and we, as a team, say, well, okay, what would help this child bring that grade level up? We also talk about their placement, whether it's going to be regular ed with modifications and accommodation, or would the child benefit from pull-out resource placement or self-contained placement? We talk about all of this during that initial placement. And then, of course, annually, we look at it to see if it needs to be continued. But that IEP is an individual educational plan for each child. Each child has one because you're looking at the data for that child. You're looking at all the information for that particular child. So that's why it's individual. And to make sure that the child is getting a free and appropriate education, then that's why we have to look at it regularly. And also that annual review can be requested, by the parent or the guardian or school administrators. We look at the modifications and accommodations. What are we doing? What can we do differently? How can we better assist each and every student? And these are things that the administrators and the teachers and the parents, we get together and we make these decisions. The law requires us to do that. Also, within that year, during that school year, we talk about dismissal. Is it time for the child to continue placement in the different areas, or should the child be dismissed? That's one of our, well, I love it when I can write to the State Department and say, we had X number of students who, because of the interventions and strategies that were used in modification and accommodation, these students were released from the program. So those are success stories for me, and we get to do those quite often. One of the next questions, then stop me at any time, Mr. Hollis, and ask interject a question or ask me a question.
All right, go ahead.
Next question was, How is a parent or guardian notified of an annual review meeting? Well, we send out letters. There's a state form. The State Department has specific letters that we have to send out. Okay, it's called notice of action, notice of conference forms. These are official documents from ADE, Arkansas Department of Education, and the parents will be notified by mail of the date, the time, the location, and the individuals expected to attend the meeting. Now, in that, parents also has a right to bring any person that they want to bring to the conference. They have a right to do that.
You mean like a representative or support system?
Parent advocate, or someone that they just, if they had a parent, if they wanted to come to the meeting and they maybe feel a little uncomfortable, they can bring their pastor, they can bring, the grandmother, whoever would make them feel comfortable in the meeting. Or you can have a professional advocate.
Parents sound good.
So these are some things and how are they notified? Again, we notify by mail. A lot of times what we do, we call first and set up a date. Okay, so and this is the time for annual reviews. Most districts, you can have an annual review anytime during the year, because if the child is placed in January, have them every year, then you could have an annual review every January. But most districts have annual reviews, even though it doesn't matter when the initial date of placement was, they have that annual review in the spring, April or May, because we're talking about what we've done, progress that we've already had, what our plans are for the next year, and then developing that new IEP. So most districts have their annual reviews during the springtime, and it's that season now. In fact, we're in the midst of ours in the Blytheville School District. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what takes place at an annual review meeting? That's another question that I have been asked. So at the annual review meeting, the committee will review the student's progress, like I've already said, the IEP goals, and then they talk about how the child is functioning in the general curriculum, in the general education, the regular ed classrooms. Then we look at any testing, any reevaluations, any school classroom assessments, district assessments. We look at all of these, and then we base from those observations, we base what that child's needs would be, how we can help the child bring their grades up, or be like our ultimate goal, be dismissed from special education. But we know that some students, that's going to be an area of need, anticipated needs, that they will be would have to have continued placement. Just depends on the cognitive level of the students. But all of these things are discussed. Parents, you have the right to ask any questions during these annual review meetings. Another question, what rights are afforded to the parent or guardian under the due process during an annual review meeting? Parents have a right to ask any questions. Parents have a right to say, for instance, you can't meet that. We set the meeting at a certain deadline or date, and you can't meet that meeting. You have a right to call and say, I can't make that meeting. May we, number one, you can change the meeting date, or you can say, you can have that meeting by another means. Because of COVID, we've been having three-way phone call with our conferences. We've had Zoom meetings with our conferences, and on the Zoom meetings, you have to have the electronic signature process. And all of this is provided through the Arkansas Department of Education. And then we have computer software programs where we can get these things done. But parent have a right to ask the questions, make sure that you're there. We want it convenient for you. Yes, we have to stay within the timelines, because just like we talked about, it has to be annually. When we're monitored by the State Department, they make sure that we've stayed within our 365-day timeline. And if you're not, then those are some things that will show up on our state report that show that we're out of compliance, because we did not hold that within a annual time frame. So we work hard at staying that, but we do convenience for the parents. So, well, okay, can we, his last year his annual review was, and we give that date. Can we make sure that we have it before or on that date so that we'll stay within our time frames and follow the guidelines of the State Department or state and federal law. If a parent needs, if there's a need for an interpreter, the school districts, parent by law, parents can have an interpreter in their conference at no cost to them. If parent need a copy of any school files or records or reports at no cost to the parent, we should give them access to anything that's in that child's IEP, anything that's in that child's files. So these are some of the affordable rights, due process rights. We may, and also attending that meeting, if a child has a medical condition, we sometimes have physicians to attend the meeting. Parents may request an individual evaluation. Maybe our psychological examiner, the parent may not, and we've had this happen where the parent, so I would like to have an individual psychological or evaluation done, and we offer that to the parents, or should public law IDEA say we should offer that to the parent at no cost to the parent. Now, if you get an individual testing, then the parent takes care of that. But anything that's in that file, student's file, then at no cost to the parent, it's offered to them. Another question: who participates in the annual review? And then we've already kind of gone through that. But participants at the annual review conference should include. Sometimes it doesn't, but it should include the parent, of course, the guardian, parent or the guardian, special education representative, a representative, a general ed representative, a principal or assistant principal could attend. And like we've already said, if the child's medical, of course, you need the nurse. If the child has a juvenile situation going on, we invite the juvenile people to attend the conference, because we need everybody around the table so we can all put our heads together and then to decide what's the best for the child. Now, at appropriate age, I like to have the student involved, because the student can tell the adults exactly.
When you say appropriate age, what ages are we prepared?
Around fifth grade, I like to invite the student. Around fifth grade, we were trying to do behavior support plan.
And what is the purpose for that? I mean, why would you want the student to be involved?
I would want the student to be involved, number one, so that they can hear and offer suggestions. Because I've asked a lot of times. So what do you think would motivate you to? What would be an incentive to you? Or do you think that we're talking about having you modification in the classroom is to have you sit closer to the teacher? So now a lot of people, frown upon that. But see, what I've learned in my 44 years in education is that when all the adults do the talking and we leave the child out and don't bring the child in, then sometimes that child can help us. Now, if the parent, again, that's the parent's right. Parents say, no, I don't want to bring him in. Now, grant you, if it's a difficult situation, no, we wouldn't bring the child in. But if we're just holding an annual review conference, talking about the child, what we're going to do, the progress that the child has made, what we plan to do next year, and then that IEP, you can have it in. But if it's one of those tough conversation and conferences, nah, we wouldn't have it.
Let me interject for a minute.
Come on.
Okay, I know we're talking about annual review. And Mrs. Webb, I see you there. We will be coming to you shortly. I know we're talking about an annual review, and I think you sort of alluded to it earlier. Now, how can a parent follow the progress of his or her child before the spring annual review? I mean, could the parent request some type of reports, weekly reports, monthly reports, where he or she could be abreast to exactly are their child meeting those objectives, in terms of the IEP plan that is designed for his educational learning. So what can take place before annual review? I mean, is there things that the parent can request?
Oh yes. We that's why I was saying check in regularly. We have a system in the Bible school district, and everybody has this technology now, in where you can go in and you can see the child's grades. You have to get with your principal to see how that program works, so you can see the grades. You can see the assignments. You can do different things. And now with Zoom with the because of COVID, we're now having to go to that Lincoln Learn and Buzz program where you can actually see the assignments that the teachers are assigning. But before COVID, I'm just going to say this, and after COVID, yes, sir, you can go. Of course, we have the progress reports that are sent home to all parents. You can also call at any time a conference where you want to sit down with the principal and the classroom teacher, special ed teacher, regular ed teacher, and say, "Hey, my child is not making passing grade. I'd like to talk to you about that." Or a lot of times, the teacher is going to call the parent to try to set that conference up if a child is failing. We don't wait around until the child is failing and then wait for the parent to call. That teacher should call the parent and say, "Hey, let's talk about it. Johnny is not doing well in my class." Um,
So
and,
that's
and
great. So even in the case where the parents is not calling,
mhm.
someone from the district will try to make contact with that particular parents to bring them up to date as to what progress their child are at in terms of his or her level of learning in terms of progress. And so there is a system in place to where you all do reach out to the parents, even if it's the case they don't call or
Yes,
check in.
they have. We that's a regular activity right there. Calling parents of and children who have IEPs, individual educational plans. We have to have a failing grade conference. If you have a child that's failing, we have to get everybody together around the table and say, "Okay, what modifications do we need to change?
Mhm.
What do we need to add? Different modifications and accommodations to support this student."
And this new, if there is a case, let's just say, if I always say if it's not broken, there's no need to fix it. So if the IEP has worked it well, and that is found out at the annual review, um, then I imagine that that child would carry over that IEP into the incoming year, or if there's a case to where I think you alluded to it, that there need a, I guess the IEP team need to regroup and focus on a particular area of subject matter that the child is somewhat struggling in, or not so much his strong point or her strong point. And so you all will get together, convene, and you all will pretty much look at that particular, let's just say subject. Let's just say it's math. If
That
a child is not progressing at the level where the district and the parent will hope that they would be come spring of the annual review, you all will address that particular subject and do what is necessary in terms of um, bringing in, other resources if you have to get that child to where uh, he is making progress or she is making progress in that particular subject. I know it, like I say, math could be science or whatever.
oh
And
yeah,
so,
progress reports are sent, and then to look at the evaluation of the every 9 weeks. If a child has an IEP, the special education teacher, we have a process where we look at all the goals and objectives. Some children just have the goals, and the ones who have goals and objectives, we look at those every 9 weeks, and we do an evaluation to see what kind of progress that child is making toward meeting that goal at the end of the year, meeting that the accuracy that they have already put place in the goal,
mhm.
in that IEP. We make sure that we're on track with checking to see if that child is making that. Because at the end of the year, at the annual review conference, we talk about how many goals the child had, how many goals did the child complete in literacy, math, science, and social studies.
Okay.
So we look at that and we document that during the annual review conference.
Well, let me ask you this here. Well, I think you answered that. Uh, what I tell you, I know my other guest is waiting. You sort of ran through it pretty detailed in regards to what is an annual review and what parent can expect and what participation that they can play also.
Mhm.
You spoke of the not just waiting to annual review, but to try to measure that child's progress from day one uh, uh, coming up to April. And so I think with that system in place, if there is any um, say concerns to where a child may be running flat or take a dip in his progress or her progress, then the school have a system in place where they can be on top of it. And I think you pretty much explained it, to the T. I'm a probably go ahead and get to my guest right now, but I want to give you, we got about maybe 2 minutes. And if there's anything you want to wrap up in this 2 minutes for the annual review, then I extend that time to you now.
Hey, I'd just like to say to any parent listening that if you have a concern about your child's IEP, contact your special education director. Number one, go to chain of command, your principal, your special ed director, well, really, and then your teacher, and just ask for a meeting. Just don't hesitate. Just ask for a meeting, and you should be able to get that offer that to you. And if everybody puts their heads together, we can find out what's best. Because the ultimate goal is to find out what's best for the student. What's best for the student? What's going to help that student? And everybody, that's our focal point. Parents, administrators, teachers. Our ultimate goal is to help the student. That's all I have.
Well, Mrs. Cole, I thank you to the bottom of my heart for coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule, speaking to the parents, speaking to the community, and speaking to other advocates who may uh, are working in this field in terms of advocating for students with special needs, or those who may have a desire to advocate. Hopefully, you said something that will inspire them or educate them in terms of being involved uh, with the educational process in terms of helping parents help their children. And so I thank you a lot. And so don't be a stranger. I will be calling up on you much more. You can hang around in the backstage, or if you want to come on and answer a question that my guest may have as I bring her on, you can. And so, although you're not on set, I haven't deleted you, so you're in my backstage. So just shoot me a message if you want to come back on.
Okay.
All right. All right. Take care, Mrs. Cole.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring in my next guest. This is a parent. We'd like to get it from the special education, or say the school district. We'd like to get it from their perspective, as well as that we like to hear from parents who have a child or had a child in the special education system, and we'd like to for them to explain or just tell their story, testify, if you will, as to what challenges that they had as they worked with the school district, trying to uh, get his or her child some help in terms of its education. And so, without any further ado, we're going to bring on my next guest and let her introduce herself. I call her by her last name, Mrs. Webb, and maybe she can go ahead and tell you all the other names in her whole full name. So, without any further ado, I want to bring on Mrs. Webb. How you doing, Miss Webb?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Um, Sorry to keep you waiting. I just wanted the special education director to go ahead and lay the foundation in regards to what we're talking about today and in regards to annual review. Um, and you heard her speak to the whole process, to whether it was uh, concerns from the parents, how they can participate in the special education meetings. They can call meetings. They can even bring an advocate or some support person to help them participate in those meetings. There's a system to where if they don't hear from the parents, uh, they will call the parents or make every effort to try to let that parent know exactly how his or her child is doing. And so that's a pretty good system. And hopefully, the parents will participate. And I commend the Blythe School District Special Education uh, Director, Mrs. Jean Cole, I thank her for all her efforts. And so now we're going to extend the floor to you. You and I have already talked it briefly, and just give us a little background on who you are and how did you uh, get involved with the special education program. So I extend that time to you now.
Okay. My name is Octavia Bright Webb, and I have a daughter that has multiple disabilities, and she started out with a special
Let me
school.
interrupt you just a minute. Can you just speak up just a little bit louder, or
Okay.
move closer to your mic?
Okay. My name is Octavia Bright Webb, and
All right.
I have a special need daughter, and she has multiple disabilities, and she started out at a special school before she got into the public school. She didn't start public school till first grade. And from that she transitioned. I wanted her in traditional classroom with the modifications, um, but they was trying to put her in self-contained, um, and that's where our issue became. It became a problem.
Okay, when you
Um,
say self-contained, can you explain exactly what type of environment that is when you say self-contained?
Self-contained is a classroom where they have a certain amount of kids in, and they spend all day in this particular classroom. This is where they do everything in this particular classroom. I
Also,
didn't
they don't
only
mingle with the regular age kids.
No, they don't mingle. They single. They separated. They have
Okay.
no contact with the regular kids. That was my first issue with self-contained.
Okay.
Like for the class, like with lunchtime, they have their own table for self-contained. They don't mingle with they sit in there during lunchtime with the other kids,
Uh-huh.
but they're separated. The self-contained table because it's off to a wall, and this is where they eat at.
So in other words, they also placed a stigma on these kids, which means they was able to differentiate who was special ed and who was regular ed.
Yeah, yeah, that was one of my issues. And during recess, they go to recess with the regular kids, but they had their own side of the playground that they played. The other kids never even come over there where they're at.
Mhm. So, let me ask you this here. Um, as you tried to help your daughter, first of all, how's your daughter doing?
She's doing okay. She's got to have another brain surgery, but they
Mhm.
postponed it for
Sorry to hear
now.
that.
But she's doing pretty good. This would be her 11th brain surgery.
Okay.
Uh, but she's doing pretty good. She's a fighter, so she don't let
And I
nothing get
want
her
to say
down.
your daughter did graduate, correct?
Yeah, she did
All
graduate.
right. Great,
I
great,
took her
great.
out of public school in the 5th grade, and I went with private school instead.
Mhm. Okay. Now you said self-containment. Uh, how did you go about addressing that issue, and was it addressed to your satisfaction? What did you do? Because I want you to somewhat educate parents who may have experience or experienced some things that you have went through. And so after you showed a disapproval of your daughter being in self-contained environment, uh, who did you speak with, and what did they say
Um,
to you?
well, I spoke to the principal. Well, we had a meeting, the IEP meeting before school started because
Uh-huh.
I requested that we have a meeting because one of the things that I always do I wanted to do was because of her complicated medical condition.
Uh-huh.
I got with everybody that would have contact with her. I wanted everybody at the meeting that way I can discuss, give
Uh-huh.
pamphlets out, educate them on her because I knew that there aren't that many hydrocephalus around here. So this was going to be new to them, having her in the school. She was the only one in the school at that time with the hydrocephalus. She had other conditions that cerebral palsy, autism. They had a couple, another autism child there, but they only had one hydrocephalus, which was her.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to teach them. And Labaners gave me a lot of pamphlets for the teachers that were designed for teachers.
Mhm.
And then they gave me pamphlets for the kid, designed to teach the kids how to interact, how to what to look for, what signs there are if a situation happened in the classroom. So I
Also, you
set
was
up.
hands on with your daughter. I mean, you was there at the school. You was helping with whatever concern that there were, I mean, you played a role into uh, getting your daughter the things or that she
Well,
needed.
after they refused to do anything, I continued going to. I went to school with her as if I was a student for 2 years straight.
Mhm.
I sat in the classroom at a distance to her for 2 years.
2 years.
For 2 years, from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
Mhm. So at some point or another, um, did the school ever begin to somewhat include you? Because I imagine by your involvement, there were some changes made in regards to progress. They started seeing some progress in your child, and so did they have an open door uh,
They
policy, if
didn't
you
care
will?
if she had improvement or not. It was mostly me against the school, and that's how they saw it. It no longer became an issue about helping my child. It was more of me
Did it ever
against the
get better?
school. No,
Hmm.
it
So,
got worse.
so for a parent that is experiencing the same thing that you are experiencing, what advice will you give to that parent?
Um, get with what I got with the state, and they tried to help out. And I have to give them commend the State Department, because when I called them and filed a complaint,
Arkansas
the,
Education Department, the state.
yes, yes,
Okay.
they came in and brought their own people that come try to see what was going on. And the best part about my situation was, at every one of my meetings, I always asked, could I record the meeting? And everybody consent to it. So they got a chance to hear from the beginning of the meeting to the end of the meeting exactly how everything would happen, what was said, who said what. And so that played a big part in them actually seeing what was going on. And the only thing they came up with was, first they wanted to do something called charter within a home setting. I
Okay,
didn't know
explain
a
that.
lot about it,
Okay,
but I
explain
would
that
try
to.
it,
Pardon me. And
sir.
explain the charter. I mean, you said home charter type schooling. I mean,
It to me was more like homeschooling. They
okay,
just brought a teacher to the house. The only issue I had with that particular program, they only did it for an hour, 4 days a week, and the teacher would come. Well, she's not learning anything for no 1 hour, and that was my issue. How are you going to teach her math, English, science, and history
oh,
in 1 hour, 4 days a week? It's impossible.
you know, since we're gonna pause there right quick, and I'm gonna for 2 or 3 minutes, I'm gonna yield to Mrs. Jean Cole. She heard exactly some of the concerns that you had and what you had, the hurdles you had to jump through to try to get help for your child. And so I want to bring on Mrs. Cole and say, Mrs. Cole, you heard a little bit about what Mrs. Webb has went through. Um, if you had a parent that had a child in her condition, you know, she mentioned the disability. Uh, you as a special education director, uh, what could be done to assist Miss Webb in trying to help her child?
Well, Miss Wells, I wanted to commend her. She did the right thing, because I didn't get to that part of my one of the questions, like what happens in a IEP conference or annual review conference where the parent disagreed with
Uh-huh.
what's going on. And if you cannot come to a decision, you have to get that mediator. I tell my parents, I give them the number. You can call the State Department, to see if there's anything, but we haven't had to do
Uh-huh.
that because, like I say, I at that meeting table at that IEP conference, we're trying to
Uh-huh.
see what's going to be best for the student. Not what's convenient for administration, not what just convenient for the parent. What's best for the child? What can we do to help the child if
Mhm.
intervening? So she talked about the self-contained classroom. We try to intervene, and I'm not just going to go through by what Blyville, because we're not perfect. We have a great program of trying to include the students with special needs, the ones who are cognitively low, the ones who have multi-disabilities. We try to include them as much as we can, in the program. In the regular general curriculum, a general, not curriculum, but general program, because
Uh-huh.
they're in self-contained. Then PE, library, music, recess, lunch. We try to do those things. This is before COVID. This is before COVID. So, but we do try to include them in those non academic areas. So the answer to your question is, my advice would, if she did not receive the services that she felt like she should have received, she did the right thing. She called the mediator and had brought the advocate or the State Department in to help the district develop that. Because a lot of districts will say, well, we don't have that program.
Uh-huh.
We don't have the luxury to say that. We have to develop as close as we can to get what that child needs as close as we can. You might not have a hospital setting, but there are some things that we can do in order to serve that student.
Well, all right. Well, thank you, Mrs. Cole, for that input there. And back to my guest, Mrs. Webb. I'll let you go ahead and pick back up now. I just wanted to interject to get the professional opinion of Mrs. Jean Cole.
And I commend Blower, because Miss Cole, because I'm impressed with how they do the special need kids, because ideally this is how it's supposed to be ran. But
Uh-huh.
like I said, Osceola School District is different. They didn't want to do any of that. They mostly just throw them in. If you say special need, they just automatically go to self-contained. And the issue I had with self-contained was because they IEP was general, just wanted to represent all kids. And that's impossible because all kids levels are different. And so I didn't like their IEP, because I told them we need to have a meeting, because they just said it automatically come with the self-contained. That's what I was told. They told me that when I asked about a question about, because when they asked me about self-contained, I researched typically what self-contained represent and what it's about, even before I even went into the classroom, because I said I wanted to go into the self-contained classroom, spend some time, just visiting as a guest,
Mhm.
seeing what it's like, if it's the right fit for my daughter. And so they allowed me to do that. But while I was visiting, they didn't have any books. They wasn't teaching any subjects. They they had 21 kids in the class to one teacher, no aides. And majority of the kids were behavior kids. That was my first problem, because technically self-contained was for medically special need kids, but you put in just behavior kids in there, then that's different, because then there's a different environment. And they spend more days worried about focusing on the kids' behavior, instead of teaching the kids.
Okay. Well,
And
and I also understand that, of course, you explained it that your daughter was she's a grown lady now, and
yeah,
but yet and still, it's your desire to try to reach out and help other parents.
yeah,
Uh,
I get a lot of parents that come. Well, they knew my situation and heard my story, so I
mhm.
get a lot. And then I have a daycare, because I have a special need. A lot of times I get a lot of parents with special need kids want to come to my daycare, so I try to help them as best I can. Some of them I go to their meetings with them, uh, just for support.
Well,
And I told them, tell them my experience, and what happened, what steps I went through to get what where I'm at now with her, and
okay.
all the people that I met, down through the years that helped
Mhm,
me out, and the programs that are free,
mhm.
that the parents can get access to.
Oh, so you already in the progress of helping parents and giving them information and resources that they can tap into to pretty much try to help their children as well. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, well, yeah, I used to have a parent support group, and I
Oh,
used
is
to
that
have
right?
special people come in and speak on IEPs, what it's about, how to fill them out, what to go over, how to take notes before you go to your meeting, so you'll be prepared when you get to your meeting. That way, you have a list of things that you want to discuss,
Mhm.
to plan it out ahead of time,
All
and
right.
to always bring somebody for more support with you. And then if you got people who know your child, can relate on whatever issue your child have, bring them in, because they can speak on that too.
What I tell you, before I come back to Mrs. Cole, Look like we're trying to stay on point here for the time. I want you to go ahead and use the time that you need. Um, some things that you believe that is important that you need to get out, uh, that might help other parents who have a child who participated in the special education program. And so I want to extend you the time that is needed at this moment now to go ahead and just look into the camera and speak to those parent, if you will, as to what are some things that they can do to help their child when they hit those what I call roadblocks. Hopefully there won't be any roadblocks, but we live in a real world, and every school district is not perfect. And
Yeah.
so what advice would you have for those parents, in the case that they do hit those roadblocks? I think you indicated uh self-contained was the issue to you uh that you didn't like, and so you addressed that issue. So speak to those parents in terms of who are faced with some challenging times ahead of them to try to help their children. And so I'm gonna extend this time to you now to speak to the parents.
Okay. One of the things that I've learned over the years is best to learn your child. You can be the best advocate. Nobody can advocate for your child better than you can. So learn, get with your doctors. A lot of times they know, um, if you have a special need child, they know accommodations and different stuff. They have pamphlets and people who to get in touch with. So networking is a big plus. They help me out, still helping me out to this day. Um, Having a support group is good. Um, Learning the State Department, Arkansas State, um, just in case you have to call them, because I called them a many times after after hours, and they would help me when I had issues, because we talked so much, and it was hard getting stuff resolved and stuff. So they got to know me on a personal level
All
uh,
right.
and stuff. So I got to know them personally and kept in touch with them. And it's good to find out advocacy programs that's out there, because it's a lot of free advocacy and they'll come and help you, and they'll come to your meetings too, and discuss the IEPs. So they will knowledge me in it. That's what they do. And they good. And I think it's one in Jonesboro. That's because I used to use them a lot when we did go to the school. Uh, and
Well,
just know what you want for your child at the meeting. And if you do have issues, it's best to record if you can. That way, it's not he say, she say, because
uh-huh.
that played a big part in as far as my situation. Because a lot of times it went left a lot, and it got ugly, almost physical to some point, uh, heated a lot, and to the point that my daughter ended up having anxiety for me trying to defend her,
I understand. So
because it got
actually,
so bad when we would go to the school. Soon as we step on campus, it was always somebody coming to attack a teacher or a principal, or somebody had an issue, and we would have a confrontation in front of her instead of letting me get her situated first, and then have me to step out if you got an issue or a problem or something. They would just do it in front of her.
mhm. And I think
And I
that's good
started
advice.
recording those because I told the state that when I pull up in the driveway, I hadn't even talked to anybody. We hadn't even she hadn't even got in the classroom yet. And before we step on the campus, as soon as we go through that door, it's always somebody their way. It's like they sense me coming on the campus, and they ready to go at it. They got to know they have an issue about something. Well, let me handle her first, and then we can discuss it. They just want to discuss it. Let's discuss it now.
Well, I sure commend you for trying to avoid having those confrontations in front of your daughter, because it, as you had stated, had somewhat of a negative impact on her mindset. And so uh, I commend you the way you handled it. So your daughter wouldn't, um, in a sense, feel like she's to blame. And so
Yeah,
I
because
commend
it
you
was
for that.
one point they did Black History or something, and for some reason she associated me with Martin Luther King, and she felt like because people killed him for trying to fight for us, she felt like me fighting for her that I was gonna die. So if I had to go to the bathroom or step out, she would freak out because she didn't think I was gonna ever come back.
Oh, so she thought harm was going to come to you because you was there fighting for her, like Dr.
Mhm,
King fought for the people.
mhm.
Oh boy, that's sad. Well, Mrs. Webb, I tell you, it was great having you on. I really enjoyed uh, your story, real story, one that I think that many of us will take dear at heart. And I'm glad that you are the champion for your daughter, even to this day. And so I commend you for that. So I want to bring you both back on set together. Uh, let's see if we can bring in Mrs. Cole. And and I want each one of you to go ahead and take about um, 2 minutes, and of course you can go first, Mrs. Cole, or you can go first, Mrs. Webb, whichever one chooses to do so. And so um, let me just go ahead and just say, Mrs. Cole, you heard a lot what was said. Some of the pitfalls that was before Mrs. Webb. You heard how she handled it. You heard how the effect it had on her daughter. And so uh, I just want you to go ahead and speak to other parents who may be in, uh, who might have had not just Blythe School, but any district, whether it's in Arkansas or, throughout the country for that matter. So we'll let you have the last words, take about maybe 3 minutes and close it out. And then I'll come to you, Miss Webb, the same thing. And then I give my closing remarks. So we'll go in that order. Mrs. Gold, we'll start with you.
Well, I just like to again commend Ms. Webb because you took action for your daughter going into the schools and all of that, and you hung in there. So I just want to commend you for that. And then you sought, because the State Department, they do have advocates, they do have consultants that come down and help with. We got a program called Circuit, where you can refer parents and districts can refer situations they would think that's out of their control, or they need some extra assistance on how to serve that particular child. I work hard at, and like I say, I can't talk for any other district, but I work hard at trying to keep peace, because sometimes the situations get a little heated. But as a director of special education, I think one of our duties would be to try to keep the situation civil, because and then keeping in mind that the professional and civil, because keeping in mind it's not personal. We don't take it personal, but we got to say what's best for this student. How can we come together? Parents and the school district must come together in order to work out a plan. It's not a us against them or whatever. It's us working together, collaborating together on what we can do best for this child. And again, Miss Webb, you did a great job with hanging in there with the school district and seeking help from the State Department. Because because when you call for the State Department, then they're going to give the districts some guidelines on what to do and what not to do. So I just want to commend you for hanging in there, and I'm glad your daughter's doing well.
Likewise. Well, Mrs. Webb, we're going to go ahead and extend the time to you and let you go ahead and give your closing remarks as well. And so I extend this time to you right now.
Well, I just want to commend Ms. Cole because I'm glad to see that there are some schools, districts that are trying to do their best for special needs. Because at one point I thought this was like for all schools. Every school was like that. So it's good to know that there are some that really do care about the kids. And I like to commend you too, Mr. Hollins, because I wish I had known you way many years ago, because I feel like I was alone and by myself learning, because I had to learn from scratch
All right.
uh,
Well,
how to
so did
advocate and how
I.
to do all of that. But I commend you
Well, thank you very
for
much. You know, well, I tell you, ladies, it's been great, and like I say, let's not be a let's not be a stranger. Let's stay in touch, and and hopefully, we can stay on this field. I think Mrs. Cole had indicated to me in a conversation earlier that, you know, uh, you like her work so well. She's going to join the advocacy community. I mean, she's very much involved now, but even when she leave her employment, she explained it to me that she yet will have boots on the ground, as I call it. you know. And so, ladies, it's been great, and I appreciate you both for taking time out of your busy schedule, sharing your stories, sharing your experiences, and giving uh, uh, some type of comments, if you will, that may be of help to someone. And I thank you both. So you all have a blessed remaining Sunday, what's left of it. May God keep you. May God bless you. And good night.
Good night.
Good night. You too.
All right. Well, those was my guests, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say this here in closing out. I want to show you some resources that I have that um that other parents can maybe tap into, and I'm going to put these on the screen. This first one that I'm going to put on the screen. This is West rightslaw.com. That is an organization that it's the whole 9 yards. I mean, it speaks to students with special needs, not just their educational progress, but I think it's fair to say that there are incidents where it may become a legal matter, where a parent may feel that their child is not receiving inadequate education. In some cases, no education. And so it could be any particular thing. They moved away from the IEP plan, and so to where it turns legal. And so this is a real good website that you can reach out to, rightslaw.com. There's another one, justiceforfamily.org. That is another source that you can tap into to get some type of help shall it come to the point to where you need some type of legal representation. Also, I think this is, I don't know if that's up under the federal statute or that Arkansas Department of Education as well. It's called OSCP. That's the Office of Special Education Program. You can get some real valuable information there, and of course, we have ideals.ed.gov. That's another resource that you can tap into to try to learn as to how you can better help your child receive free, appropriate public education. And of course, you always can tap out to the Arkansas Department of Education, that's State Arkansas Department of Education. And so those are some sources that you can use. I'll run through them again. That first one was rightslaw.com. Okay. justiceforfamilies.org. Then you have the Office of Special Education Program. You can Google it and pull some information up. The Arkansas Department of Education. And of course, ideals.ed.gov. So those are some sources that you also can tap into. And I also want to show you something. Let me put it on the screen for you all can see. These are some things for any of you who have a child who has an IEP. When you begin to start going through your IEP meetings or whatever, these are 10 things that they would hope that you would ask. Of course, these are the 10 things. We're gonna run through them right quick, and you're gonna have a check mark over here. You're gonna either check yes or no. This is your checklist. If you have a child who participating in a special education program. Okay. Now you see that very first one. I'm gonna blow it up a little bit where you can fully see it. I think you probably can see that. Anyway, this first one, let me try to highlight it. This first one here, it say, does the IEP include accurate information about your child's present level of academic achievement and functional performance? Okay. Then you have another one. It goes number 2. It say, does the IEP identify all your child's needs that result from the disability. Okay, we drop down to 3. It says, does the IEP include measurable goals? Ms. Cole spoke to that. How will you know if your child is learning or not if you don't have a system in place to where you measuring his or her uh, uh, learning performance as they go through the school year? And of course, we have are the measurable goals based on your child's present level of academic achievement and functional performance? You know, that's very important. Where's your child right now, presently? What level is he, for example, in math? Uh, and where would you have to, where would you hope to have that child come spring of annual review? All right. And number 5, of course, does the IEP describe how and when the school will measure your child progress toward the goals? Ms. Cole spoke to that. You don't have to wait till the end of the school year. If there's any concern that you have, you can reach out to the school. If you don't reach out to them, they do have a system in place where they'll call you. Okay. Number 5 is say, does the IEP specify when you will receive reports on your child progress toward the annual goals? Ms. Cole spoke about how the reports can be given. You're going to get it. What is it? Every 9 weeks, I believe what it is. And if there is a case to where, the parent need to be informed before the first 9 weeks or the annual review for that matter, then they do have a system in place where they reach out to the parents. Okay. Number 7 is say, does the IEP include a statement of special education services related services and supplementary aids and services that the school will provide? And of course, we got number 8. Let's go up here. They say, does the IEP allow your child to make progress in the general curriculum and participate in extracurriculum and other non-academic activities? The kids need to be involved in other recreational activities. For example, what is football, basketball, soccer, you name it. Number 9, it say, does the IEP include an explanation of the extent to which your child will be educated with children who are not disabled? And that's one of the things that Miss Webb, she had a problem with, and rightfully so. A child should not be placed in a self-containment environment to where he or she is shut off from other students, whether it's to be educated with them, to interact with them, to recreational sports. No kid should have to exist in a school environment to where they're isolated from the other kids. There's a stigma that was applied, as Mrs. Webb stated, for the tables. You were able to identify who was special ed and who was regular ed, and that stigma would do some harm in terms of the kids' self-esteem. And of course, let me get this here. This last one, number 10, of course, it is, does the IEP include the projected date services will begin, frequency, location, and duration of the services? So those are the 10 things, checklists that every parent need to have with them. And you need to be able to check the block on the side as indicated where it got yes or no. For any block that you check no in this checklist, then you need to address that immediately. Okay. So that is the my show for today. I know that there are viewers who didn't participate in terms of watching the show, participating, asking questions. I want you to know, to the viewers, you may not have a child who's participating in special education, but you might have a family member who have a child that's participating in special education. It could be a friend, could be a neighbor, could be a church member. And so for any information that you get from taking advantage of watching broadcasts such as this, or others for that matter, then you might very well be able to help your family member, your neighbor, your church member, anyone that you come in contact with that you have came into knowledge to where they have a child who participate in a special education program. You could very well be of some help to them. And so please take time to go back and review this broadcast, and hopefully there will be something that you can use within the community to help somebody. So that's pretty much is going to be my show for today. And I want to thank you all for sitting in, the few that did sit in, and listening to Mrs. Webb and listen to our special education director, Miss Jean Cole, which gave some valuable information. I enjoyed them both. And so I just want to say, may God bless, may God keep you all, and have what's remainder of this beautiful Sunday. Enjoy it. Remember, the pandemic is real. Do continue to wear your mask until you feel that we're out of the woods. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and end this broadcast. And I want to say to each one of you, please catch me again next week. We will be coming back giving you another great show. Okay. And so, as I always say, peace and love, and may God bless, and may God keep you. Catch us next week, April 18th, 2021. Topic will be announced. Okay? So, again, peace and love, and good night.